US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are preparing to meet, a Kremlin aide said Thursday, confirming previous reports. A meeting could take place as soon as next week. The announcement comes after Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff visited Moscow, and one day before a deadline imposed by Trump for Putin to agree to a ceasefire deal is set to expire. Neither side confirmed what Witkoff's visit to Moscow entailed, with Trump refusing to call the meeting a breakthrough. Trump has previously expressed frustration with the Russian leader's inability to agree to even a temporary pause in fighting, with Russia continuing to strike Ukrainian towns and cities despite US efforts to seal a truce. Trump hinted at plans to hold a three-way meeting between himself, Putin, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, a proposal the Kremlin played down. Moscow left the option of that meeting without comment, the Kremlin said Thursday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Russia was more inclined to agree to a truce following Witkoff's visit. He cautioned that it is important that Russia does not deceive Ukraine or the United States in the details of a potential ceasefire agreement. US President Donald Trump is hosting the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia at the White House on Friday evening for what he called a historic peace summit. The two former Soviet republics, which have seen almost 4 decades of conflict, could finally settle for peace in the region, notably away from Moscow. It's also an opportunity for Trump to present himself as a global peacemaker, fulfilling a key election promise he made on his campaign trail last November. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev met for their first bilateral meeting in July, with the aim of finalizing a peace treaty. The critical issue of the Zangezur Corridor, a proposed transport route designed to connect Azerbaijan's mainland with its enclave, which borders Turkey via Armenian territory, remains. Armenia and Azerbaijan have been sworn enemies for decades, going to war twice over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region, which has killed and displaced thousands.
It's a major win for environmental activists. France's Constitutional Council, where I'm currently standing, struck down one of the most controversial articles of the Duplon agricultural law, blocking the return of a pesticide widely known as the bee killer. In a decision handed down on Thursday evening, the council ruled that allowing exemptions to use the pesticide like acetamiprid, for example, would violate France's Charter of the Environment, including the right to live in healthy surroundings. Acetamiprid was already banned in France back in 2018, but it is still legal in certain EU countries. Its comeback has been widely requested by certain beet and hazelnut farmers, citing crop risks. But public backlash has been absolutely overwhelming these past few weeks. A petition to repeal the law drew a record 2.1 million signatures. And while much of this agricultural Duplon law still stands, Thursday's ruling draws a clear divide between the French public and the country's lawmakers.
British border authorities have detained the first group of migrants under a pilot plan that will send some who cross the English Channel on small boats back to France. According to the UK Home Office, the migrants were detained on Wednesday, the day the program came into force, and will be held at immigration removal centres until they are returned to France.
The groundbreaking principle here is that people can be returned to France if they arrive on these dangerous and illegal small boats. In return, we will take people who have applied legally through a legal process, been through security checks, but we should be returning people who have made these illegal crossings.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron announced a deal last month. While the pilot involves a limited number of people, UK officials suggest the deal is a breakthrough because it sets a precedent. However, critics say the program will do little to deter migrants because the numbers returned to France are small and loopholes will allow people who enter Britain illegally to remain as they pursue human rights claims.
The casket carrying the body of Romania's first elected president after the fall of communism in 1989 was transferred from the hospital to the presidential palace for a state funeral on Wednesday.
Romania's first president after revolution, Ion Iliescu, was laid to rest in Bucharest. He passed away at the age of 95. During his presidency, the country joined NATO, laid the groundwork for EU accession, and adopted a new national constitution. More than 1,000 people attended at the ceremony to pay their final respects, and the day of August 7 was declared a day of national mourning in Romania. However, the legacy of Ion Iliescu remains a controversial one. He was accused of crimes against humanity after thousands of Romanians lost their lives during the Romanian Revolution and the violent protests that took place at the beginning of the 90s. Many questions will remain unanswered because after his death, Ion Iliescu no longer could stand trial.
The U.S. has doubled its reward for the arrest of Venezuela's president Nicolas Maduro from $25 million to $50 million, accusing him of being one of the world's largest narco-traffickers and working with cartels to flood the U.S. with fentanyl-laced cocaine. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Thursday that, quote, under President Trump's leadership, Maduro will not escape justice and he will be held accountable for his despicable crimes. Bondi said the U.S. Justice Department has seized more than $700 million in assets linked to Maduro, including 2 private jets and close to 7 tons of cocaine, allegedly traced directly to the Venezuelan leftist leader. The Venezuelan Foreign Ministry, in its response, described Bondi's claim as pathetic and the most ridiculous smokescreen ever seen. Maduro was indicted in a federal court in Manhattan in 2020 during the first year of the Trump presidency, along with several of his close allies.
A Brussels court has not only prohibited the Flemish government from sending a container of military equipment from the port of Antwerp to Israel, but halted any future transit of military gear. It's a victory for 4 NGOs that accuse Flanders of failing to meet its obligations under international law over the transfer of military equipment through the port of Antwerp.
The containers contained pallets that included pallets of tapered roller bearings, which are something that's used in tanks and in armored vehicles. They're being shipped specifically to a company called Ashdod Ashkelon in Ashdod in Israel, which is an exclusive supplier to the Israeli army of the Merkava tanks, which are being used in Gaza in the genocide now.
Belgium has banned arms exports to Israel since 2009. However, the hearing revealed that the Flemish government only controls arms exports when transport companies request them. The Genocide Convention, the Geneva Conventions, and the Arms Trade Treaty prohibits countries from exporting military equipment that could be used to commit war crimes or genocide. The judge concluded that the region of Flanders was systematically failing to meet its obligations.
The judge referred to the Geneva Convention, the judge referred to the Arms Trade Treaty, the judge referred to the current weapons decree that's in force in Flanders as well. So there's a very broad basis for this case, and it was upheld on all accounts, including preventing the specific container, but also all further shipments of military materials to Israel that could be used potentially in genocide.
When contacted by Euronews, the Flemish government, which still has the right to appeal the decision, did not respond.
A military helicopter crashed in Ghana late on Wednesday, killing the country's defense minister and environment minister. According to a government spokesperson, Defense Minister Edward Omane Boama and Environmental Science and Technology Minister Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed were killed along with 6 other people on board. The crash, described as a national tragedy, was one of the worst Ghanaian air disasters in more than a decade. Ghana's military said the helicopter took off from the capital Accra and was heading northwest towards the gold mining area of Obuasi. Shortly after entering the area in the Ashanti region, the aircraft went off the radar and the wreckage of the aircraft was later located. The military said the cause of the crash is not yet known and a probe has been launched to investigate the incident.
The world experienced its third warmest July on record this year, according to the European Union agency that tracks global warming. Despite a slightly lower global average temperature, scientists at the EU Copernicus Climate Change Service said heat and deadly floods persisted in July. Hot weather and dry conditions following an unusually dry and warm spring fueled fires across southern Europe last month. Northern European countries also felt the heat, with Finland and Norway suffering from heat waves and record temperatures. While not as hot as July 2023 or 2024, the hottest and second hottest on record, they warned that this does not mean climate change has stopped. According to the monitoring agency, new temperature records and more climate extremes are to be expected unless greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere are brought down. Greenhouse gases released from the burning of fossil fuels like gasoline, oil and coal are the main cause of climate change.